It's May 2018 and the team at Google has released a new version of their Angular framework. In this video, we'll highlight some noteworthy features that you should benefit from in this latest release. Overall, this version tries to focus more on the tooling and the infrastructure than it does with the features in the code itself. Before we start, you may have noticed that a lot of Angular packages like the CLI getting the 6.0 mark from the previous 1.0 or whatever it was at before. Just like the team skipped version 3 to 4, these are all efforts to get packages on a new base version and make it easier to identify compatible versions. With that said, let's get into the new features of Angular 6.0. Number 1, updates to the Angular CLI. Version 6 of the CLI gives us a few new commands such as ng update, add, and a new flag to generate our own Angular libraries. One of the most notable features is the new ng update command users will find at their disposal. With all the moves from Angular 1 to 2 and 2 to 4, the team is really putting forth a lot of effort into making sure we don't have to go through the upgrade hell again. With this new command, the CLI will make intelligent suggestions on which packages should be upgraded, used, and code that needs to be changed from version to version. Third parties will be able to provide an ng update schematic, which is essentially just a file that specifies everything that needs to change, and apply those changes to your code when they need to. We'll leave a link in the description below for an online version of this new feature so you can get a glimpse of it in action. Another feature, ng add, now allows users to easily add and configure new packages into their project. This command actually works on top of either npm or yarn, and not only does it add the package, but it also adds any needed configuration and boilerplate code to wire it up so you can hit the ground running. It's a lot like generating components and services that get configured in your application with the CLI, and many of you are already doing that now, so now you can actually do that with other packages. Now don't go ng adding just anything, because all these packages will require the very same schematic file mentioned previously, defined by the package author. Both these new commands make use of the new schematic file that will provide specifics on how projects should be added or upgraded. And finally, in the CLI, there's a new flag to start generating your very own Angular libraries. Simply tag the word library after the ng generate and watch it fly to build out an entire library project. Number 2, Angular Material. Angular Material, the material design library, also got a few new goodies. A new tree component for displaying data trees in your application is now available, and anyone who's ever had to handroll a file or data explorer can surely appreciate this component, as it's guaranteed to cut down on a few development cycles. One of the most notable features in the material design library is now the new component development kit. While material design has become quite popular in recent years, you might have a different opinion, or your company might have its very own design style guide. Well, now with the component development kit, developers can use the underlying work in the material design components to create high quality and custom components that align with their needs and around creating data tables, dialogues, overlays, and more. Number 3, Angular Elements. We've talked before how components tend to be specific to their frameworks. However, as time moves ahead, we're all pushing for a more unified solution with things like vanilla HTML web components. In version 6 of the Angular framework, you can now run your components as HTML elements. Now, just to be clear, this doesn't mean that you can export your components as elements and ditch the framework. It simply means we can use our Angular features and run our components as elements. So why would you want to do this? Well, this can be actually pretty helpful in applications that are very dynamic in how they render. Like if we were trying to load Angular from a content management system on the fly after our application is already loaded. By running our components as custom elements, the browser would natively understand how to run those components. It can also be really helpful in server-side rendering parts of your application for some insanely fast load times. Treeshakable Providers. Tree shaking has become all the rage, and if you're not familiar with the idea, it's essentially just eliminating code from your final build that you're not using. This helps us save precious space and can increase the performance of our application. Typically, we would create a service and then specify it as a provider in our module, but now it looks like we will be moving away from this pattern. Now modules will be specified in the service itself within our injectable decorator, and no longer be required in the module provider array. Animation performance. Animations can now run without the web animations polyfills, so if you were using the animations package before and you upgraded to version 6, you can safely remove this and save around 47 KB on your total bundle size, while also doing some increased performance for Safari. RxJS version 6. The Reactive Extensions, or better known as RxJS, released version 6 of its library several weeks ago. Now Angular is also rocking the new release. Much like the updates to Angular, RxJS focus more on efficiency versus than features, allowing some code to be more tree shakeable so only the pieces of the code that you're using are finding their way into their final build. This can change a couple import lines to your application, but overall you shouldn't need to have a great deal of change. Long-term support. And finally, within this release, the team at Google announced that all major versions of Angular starting at version 4 will be subjected to long-term support. This means each major release will be supported for 18 months with around 6 months of active development, followed by 12 months of critical bug fixes and security patches. And those are our top takeaways from the new release of Angular version 6. Thank you for watching the video, and if you enjoyed it, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel to get more content like this, and if you hear the thunderstorm outside, please disregard that. But we'll be bringing you more Angular news, more React news, and tutorials on all this content. So we'll see you in the next one.